It takes 5 steps to get from my bedroom to the front door. 5 measly little steps. I've taken them thousands of times before and never given them a thought. 5 steps. 5 simple steps. I have to take them. I have to force myself to take them. My feet are frozen, but I have to make them move because there is something in the house. The scratching at my bedroom door started just after midnight. "Stop it, Fiddle," I said to my black cat, who has a horrible habit of grinding his claws into the wood when he's bored or simply in the mood to go to sleep in another room. The scratching continued. "Fine, I'll let you out." I tried to pull myself up to open the bedroom door for him, but I felt his paw brush my face. He mewed from the crook of my arm, angry that I had woken him. The scratching continued. The slow drone of something trying to get in filled my room. I froze in the bed. I listened, hoping that my ears were just a little off and that the sound was coming from the neighbor's backyard. The scratching continued. My breath caught in my chest as I lightly moved Fiddle from my side. The scratching continued. Now it sounded like metal or ivory scraping away at the failing wood. I lifted the covers off me. Sweat soaked the sheets despite the fact that temperatures had reached the low teens outside and my heater was mediocre at best. I swung my feet from the bed to the floor in slow motion, thinking that if I was quiet enough, I could surprise whatever it was on the other side of the door. A raccoon, I hoped. Or maybe one of those horrible rats that I heard live in the sewers of every major city. Animals can get into houses, I told myself. They can crawl in through chimneys or gaps in the foundation, right? Sure they can, I reassured myself. I'm positive I've seen news stories on it. The scratching grew louder. I flipped the light on and walked toward the door. I twisted the handle and opened it as slowly as I could. Screeching ripped through the hallway, a sound like birds of prey mixed with feedback. The light snapped off. The door slammed shut behind me. The screeching shook the walls. Suddenly it stopped and gave way to a light tapping sound. Something walked back and forth on the hardwood floor. I knew whatever it was would have circled me if there had been enough room. I grabbed the bedroom doorknob, but the door wouldn't budge. I shook it violently, but nothing happened. I laid my shoulder into the door, but it stayed shut. I was stuck in the hallway. 5 steps, I told myself. There are 5 steps from my bedroom to the front door. If I could just get outside, I knew everything would be okay. I could yell for help. I could smash the bedroom window open and grab Fiddle. I could run away. I would be fine if I could just get outside. Thunder muffled the tapping on the floor. Lightning struck, and I saw something move, an animal, too big to be a house cat, too small to be a wild cat, paced with its shoulders hunched, ready to strike. The hallway went black again. My feet locked onto the floor. Lightning struck, illuminating the animal's master. A small boy in a wet, tattered ringmaster's costume flashed a little smile, his pale lips nearly blending in with his gray, sallow skin. 5, the little boy whispered, and I felt my right foot lift from the floor and moved forward. It pulled at my knee like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I was amazed it didn't shatter the floor when it fell. The hall lit up. The little boy and his pet were gone. My bedroom door creaked open behind me. I heard the faintest sound of metal clacking against metal. Without moving my feet, I turned and peered into my room. Fiddle slept peacefully next to an old woman sitting at the foot of the bed. She smiled. It wasn't a wicked smile like the one from the boy. It was sweet, ever so sweet. "I'm just finishing up my knitting, dear," she said, the needles clicking against each other. "When it's all done, it will fit you perfectly. Would you like to see it? It's hard to imagine, but I do think it will make a lovely shroud." She smiled again and stood. I slammed the door. 4 she whispered as she vanished from my sight. My left foot forced itself forward. A record scratched as the broken player my grandmother had left me flipped on in the living room. The crackling sounds of a woman singing an old interwar French ballad filled the house. The tapping on the animal's claws and the clacking of the knitting needles had given way to a slow creaking coming from the kitchen. Back and forth, back and forth. I turned slowly toward the sound, seeing only the man's feet at first. His neck hung from a rope tied to a ceiling fan, and his body swayed as if the fan were somehow blowing it back and forth. Back and forth. I turned away. "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here," a middle-aged woman in a USO outfit shouted as she rushed at me from across the hall. "I'm sorry," I said, "but I..." "What?" "Wanted to see the body." "You sick little children." "Fine. Look at it." She grabbed my face, forcing it to look at the man dangling and swaying. His face bore the lines of his generations, those who carried the world on their shoulders. "You're no better than your filthy little friends," the middle-aged woman said. I reached out to the man, thinking maybe if I could touch him, this would all end. The kitchen pushed in on the hall, as if my reach were connecting the two spaces. My hand moved toward the hand of the dangling man. I could almost touch his fingers. He gasped. His eyes rolled open. But there were no irises, only empty white sclera. He snatched my wrist in his hand. "You did this," he said. "You and your whole dirty little group." Bile trickled from his mouth. I broke away screaming. "3," he cried out, but the sound was little more than a death rattle. My right foot pushed me forward. The light snapped off again and the storm returned. The record skipped. I tried to run for the door, but I still couldn't move. The record continued to skip. The sound burrowed into my head and my eyes squeezed tight as though they could somehow shut out the horrible noise. Finally, an unseen hand turned off the player and turned on the old AM radio in its place. The sounds of a small-town preacher bounded off the walls, creating an endless repetition, a cannon that swirled around me. "Dandelions rise up in the fields of our Lord, but you have cut them down. Now he comes for you like a thief in the night to rouse you from your slumber and fill you with the pain and scars he has felt at your hands. Do you believe, boy?" Thunder rattled the hallway. A slow, steady drip came for the ceiling. Drip, drip, drip. Drip, drip. A leak from the rain, I thought. Drops fell lightly on my face. Drip, 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 drip. I still couldn't push myself any closer to the door. Lightning flashed. Above me, I saw the fresh blood stains on the ceiling. Blood that soaked through from somewhere I couldn't see and fell into my eyes and trickled onto my lips. I gagged. My breath failed. I struggled for air or for speech or for anything that could save me. "You who have sinned against all those who have loved you, and now you will repay your debt," the radio preacher chuckled. "2," he said, and my left foot thrust me one step closer to my goal. The front door loomed just barely out of reach. Darkness, complete darkness, no lightning, no sound other than my breath returning. I grasped for the doorknob blindly, but only my fingertips brushed it. I reached out to the wall to steady myself. I prepared to lunge or jump or fall forward, but something kept me nailed in place. Minutes passed, and I was left alone with my thoughts. If I could just move forward, take the final step, I could be free. But when you're alone in the dark with nothing but your own thoughts, the idea of freedom seems absurd. Alone, there is always something pressing in on you, something telling you that your life will never turn out how you hoped. The porch light sparked, casting a faint glow across the hallway. I could see the door again. I was so close. One more step, and I could get out of the house. I could get away from the nightmare. Tap, tap, tap. I swung my head around to find the little boy and his beast standing behind me. "Tell me something, sir," the little boy said. "Are you sure you want to know what's on the other side of the door?" He smiled. "One," he whispered. It takes 5 steps to get from the front door to my bedroom. 5 measly little steps. I've taken them thousands of times before and never given them a thought. 5 steps